Hello chess friends and welcome to your Out of Chess channel and welcome back to the TCEC Season 25 Superfinals between the two top engines, the most powerful engines in the world between Stockfish 16 and LCZero. As I'm recording this video, the result is +6 for the Stockfish engine. Stockfish has now a comfortable situation in the Superfinal if nothing dramatically changes, and I think nothing will change. Then of course Stockfish is the winner of a new TCEC season. The difference, as I mentioned before, is simple as that. Stockfish somehow with its tactical ability manages somehow to defend these bad prearranged openings that are prearranged by the TCEC organizer. So Stockfish somehow manages to pull off a draw in a seemingly losing position. On the other hand, Stockfish wins its games with the white pieces when the prearranged line is bad for black. So it's a huge difference. The tactical possibilities by Stockfish are really remarkable in my opinion. Nothing dramatic will change. As I said, Stockfish will be probably the winner of the TCEC Season 25. So I've sorted out really a beautiful, spectacular, first of all positional game, but then afterwards a brutal tactical game. This game I think has everything that you need to know about chess. It has so many beautiful strategic elements, also many important principles in chess, also great tactics all over the board. Really beautiful game. Pay good attention. In my opinion, one of the best games so far from this super final between these two top engines. So let's see now what happened with the white pieces. The fish opened with move e4. Leela's response was e5, but we're still in these moves that are prearranged by the organizer. So the prearranged opening was now the Ruy Lopez with the move bishop to b5. We have the Murphy defense with the a6, bishop to a4, knight to f6 castling. We have bishop to e7. So the prearranged opening was now the close to Ruy Lopez. So here you can of course take, but then the position is the open Ruy Lopez. Then the position is exploding simply in the center of the board. We have rook to e1, b5, bishop to b3, d6, c3, preparing of course to break and enter with the move d4. Now we have this common attack by the knight against the bishop. Stockfish keeps the bishop on the board, and now after move c5, d4, queen to c7, knight to d2. The last prearranged move by the organizer was now the move knight to c6, and Stockfish simply advances the pawn d5. LCZero retreats with knight to a7, is at least somehow trying, of course, to include this rook, this knight into the game with b4, knight to b5 to make some kind of a progress on this side of the board. Stockfish plays first of all the move h3. It's not preventing this positional ideas with bishop to g4. Stockfish is playing here a beautiful prophylactic move, but then afterwards the main concept is of course to reroute the knight on f1, to play knight to e3 or maybe knight to g3, and then maybe occupy the weak f5 square in black's camp. We have bishop to d7, we have b3, very interesting defensive move, I would still say, because Stockfish is waiting here, keeps the flexible structure here with both of these pawns. For instance, if black plays something like c4, then we can pass through with the move b4. If you play b4, then we can pass through with the move c4. So Stockfish play this parallel 2 versus 2 setup, is waiting here simply because Stockfish probably calculated that LCZero had here maybe a slight advantage because of this direction of the minor pieces that are targeting this side of the board. Stockfish continues with castling. We have now the move a4. In one game that I found in the database, the continuation was knight to f1, then black simply continued with knight to c8, but it's basically with the same concept. Here in this game in the database, it was a game between two GMs. Here after queen to b8, white player simply paralyzed further the queen side with the move a5. Stockfish, on the other hand, plays a little bit different here. After move a4, Stockfish is not playing. Stockfish also played the move knight to f1. Leela played also knight to c8. Stockfish didn't play here the move a5. Stockfish is of course a more dynamic player than any human in the world, and Stockfish is saying here, I'll keep also my options a little bit longer here on the queen side. Maybe I can do also something here on the queen side. Really crazy stuff. So as I said, in the GM game, the continuation was a5. Stockfish simply continues with knight to e3. Says, show me what you got here on this side of the board. I'm waiting for you. I'm not scared by attack here on this side of the board. I'll keep my chances on the king side, but also I keep my chances on the queen side. Really huge difference in approaches. So after knight to e3, bishop to d8 by LCZero. Stockfish is playing now the move c4. If you play in any case here b4, that's I think the position that white wanted to get. Blocked out pawn structure on this side of the board, and now suddenly here white will simply make progress on this side of the board. It's a huge difference in potential attacks, because here the pawn structure is blocked out, so nothing dramatically can change here. You can just push maybe this pawn here, but in order to make some kind of a progress, you have to maybe sacrifice a piece or something. So now it is not working here. As I said, if you have this kind of position, look at this bishop is targeting here, this bishop is targeting here, this knight is targeting here, this knight is targeting here, so obviously white will have a dominant position on this side of the board and without worries here on the queen side. So that's why from move c4, Leela keeps also the options, plays now the move h6, bishop to d2, bishop knight to e7, and now really one of the most interesting moves here of this particular game. In the beginning, it seems so that this is nothing spectacular, but Stockfish plays now beautiful bishop to c3. Okay, there is now this obvious threat of knight to e5, maybe followed with d6, and of course it's defendable. But this bishop on c3 will cause so many damage in black's position. This bishop on c3, memorize it, it will become simply the most powerful piece on the board. After knight to g6, Stockfish continues now with knight to f5. What should black do? If you don't tolerate now this knight, if you play bishop to f5, this wasn't played in the game, then look at this. After e takes f5, the problem is now after knight to f4, then there is this one. Look at this, a takes b5, a takes b5, and as I said, again, with the same tactics, similar tactics, the bishop is simply coming in a brutal way into the game, and this is a devastating position. We'll pick up the rook, we'll pick up the knight probably. In my opinion, not a good continuation. Look at this, really, queen to f3 is going to happen. There is no good square for the knight, so too many opportunities simply here for white. So after move knight to f5, that's why we have b takes a4, b takes a4. So you see there is maybe here a potential progress for both sides, but the cool part also about this move bishop to c3 by white is that these bishops are controlling all of the squares, so black cannot infiltrate in white's position with any of these pieces. Black cannot somehow get active on the queen side, so basically nothing dramatically changes on the queen side. Still, there is only one direction, I think, in this game. There's only the direction towards the king side. Rook to e8 by Leela, we have a5. Now Stockfish paralyzes simply the whole queen side, but still with some option, at least something to do here on the queen on the b file. So knight to f4, king to h2, with the preparation to kick away the knight from this very active square in f4. You should not tolerate, of course, your opponent's pieces on the board. g3, then of course the h2 would be hanging, so king to h2, very important move. g6, now Stockfish plays the beautiful move g3 2, counter attack. What should black do? G takes f5 if you play. Again, this wasn't the continuation of the game, but we are curious, of course, what happens if g takes f5 happens. Then, of course, we play g takes f4. You pick up now this one. We pick up now also this one. Maybe you can pick up the knight. We can also pick up the knight. But the issue is after rook to e1, we don't have to even take out now the rook. Look at this. Queen to d3. Huge threat. Huge, even a checkmate threat is here, so you have to even sacrifice the bishop. I don't know, you get destroyed. Rook to e1, it happens if you somehow defend this position. Rook to g1, so it's a devastating position here for black. So this is not working. So you see, actually you cannot play g takes f5 because, as I said also in the middle of this video, white has simply a dominant position on this side of the board. Maybe black has a slight advantage on this side of the board, but nothing can be, so much cannot be done here, I think, on this side of the board. So that's why here after move g3, LCZero simply retreated to h5. Stockfish retreats also to e3, bishop to e7, now knight to g2, preparing finally g4, queen to d2, and controlling again the f4 square. This is now the idea. So g4, first of course queen to d2, then g4, and then knight to f4, and queen takes f4 if of course black jumps here on this f4 square. We have queen to c8, targeting the h3 weakness. Stockfish retreat. So far you see it's a positional struggle, it's a positional battle. Everyone is trying to get some kind of a space here, some kind of a tiny little square to improve its position. Really so far really a nice position game by these two top engines. Knight to h7, queen to d2, as I said, with g4 f4 preparations. We have bishop to f6. If you play something like bishop to g5 here, then you get simply hit by f4. Maybe you can retreat, but we can play again f5. Look at this. Maybe g takes f5, e takes f5, bishop to f5, queen to f5, g4. Also a tactic that should not be forgotten in this types of position when the knight is here on the edge of the board. Many times I've seen it. Also in Benoni's, in Ruy Lopez, in many of these games, you get sometimes the fork when you don't, when you forget about your loose knight on h5. So this is is not working. So that's why for queen to d2, bishop to f6 was played by the fish, rook to bishop to f6, pardon me, by Leela, rook to f1 by Stockfish. We have queen to c7, rook to e1. So you see, Stockfish now changes the whole direction of the game. Stockfish is saying, you don't have anything here, you don't have any opportunity here, because my bishops are controlling all of the squares now. Some Stockfish is coordinating even this last piece into the attack now. The rook is also playing a very important role in the game. We have bishop to g7, g4. You see, you cannot play knight to f4. If you play, of course, let's see again, knight to f4, we simply trade off more pieces. Queen to f4, okay, maybe, I don't know, you can continue with rook to b4, but look at this, bishop to d3. You can maybe pick up this one, but then again, the d6 pawn is weak, so it's sort of this Benoni d6 pawn that should you also be careful with the black pieces. So also this is not working here for black. So after move g4, Leela c0 had to now retreat to f6. We have f3, g5. It seems so that nothing again can change in this particular position, because the position gets more and more blocked out. And in order to make anything out of blocked out positions, I think in one moment someone will have to sacrifice a piece. And you can guess who will be the first one to sacrifice a piece. As I said, memorize now this bishop here on c3 is very beautiful attacking piece. Look how Stockfish included this piece in a beautiful and spectacular way. First of all, knight to e2, with ideas maybe knight to g3, knight to f5. But even if you manage to place your knight on f5, after bishop to f5, again the structure becomes more and more static. So here after move h5 by Leela, Stockfish simply retreats, king to h8, knight to d3, we have knight to g8, and now rook to f2. Stockfish is preparing now maybe some breakthrough ideas with move f4. We have h4. Now when the position is blocked out, Stockfish simply includes now this other rook into the game, and it prepares now a brutal here f4 move. In the game, rook to b7 by Leela c0, trying somehow to maybe protect now the second rank, and this was it. Now we're not in a positional game anymore. From this point on, Stockfish is changing simply the dynamics of the game, plays now one of the most epic, most brilliant, and most brutal attacks that I've seen in my life. Stockfish first of all plays the beautiful f4 move. Simply destroys now this blocked out pawn structure, is of course letting now this position explode. So far, as I said, it was simply a struggle, battle, tiny little square that you wanted to get in the position, but now we have a collision and it becomes now a really spectacular game. Let's see now what happens, for instance, if you play e takes f4. If you maybe are trying to get rid of this bishop on c3, then look at this, we play bishop to g7, you can maybe play king to g7, but now knight takes f4, we sacrifice simply a piece. This is the way to go. After g takes f4, rook takes f4, threatens of course to pick up now the pawn on f7. You can maybe defend it, but now queen to c3. You can maybe defend it with f6, but now we play g5. This is basically the queen is now taking over the function of the bishop that was on c3. This queen is far away from the action. Now we look at this. After g5, knight to g5, we attack now the knight. You can maybe step back to h8, but now look at this. We can simply play rook takes g5. You cannot pick it up because of the queen's activity. Even if you go here to h7, now suddenly this bishop is becoming the best piece on the board, because now you play e5 after something like, I don't know, d takes e5, knight to e5 is again devastating position. It's simply game over here for black. Very wild stuff. So that's why from f4 here Leela tried to somehow keep the position blocked with g takes f4, but again with the same tactics. Stockfish plays again the same move. Again, let's see what happens. For instance, even if you play e takes f4, again with similar position, rook to f4, maybe now you don't have to even play rook to f8. You can maybe play f6 immediately, but now we simply play here g5 anyway. After knight to g5, look at this, rook takes f6, knight takes f6, queen to g5. You have to go here, then we pick up the knight. Again, this position is collapsing for black. It's a devastating position. The pieces of blacks are simply too far away from the defense of the king, so it's game over here for black for sure. Very wild stuff. So after knight to f4, that's why Leela c0 didn't dare to pick up now the knight on f4, simply developed another piece. And look at the structure now. We have here many targets in black's position. Now the h4 is weak, the f7 pawn is weak. Really instructive attack, I think. Many of us had, I think, many times a similar position. didn't know what to do, this was really, really instructive way how to make at least some kind of a progress in a seemingly blocked out position. We have queen to e1 by Stockfish. Now Leela finally plays e takes f4 because probably Leela calculated that there's maybe no threat again here on dark square. But you see Stockfish keeps again the queen connected to the bishop. Stockfish continues with rook to f4. We have queen to d8, g5, attacking now the piece. If you play knight to g5, of course, then bishop to f6 again gets the piece back. We'll get the rook very active with the h4 pawn is weak. Again, a messed up position for black. So after move g5, we have knight to h5. Stockfish continues with rook to h4, and now you see we have this beautiful rook lift. And when there is a rook lift by Stockfish, you can guess what happens. This rook is going to be the monster in the game. Really, really crazy position. What should black do? If you play here bishop to c3, this is not working because after queen to c3 you can maybe cover, but now look at this, we can even play rook to f6. You can try maybe rook to g8, but now look at this, rook to h7, king takes h7, rook to h6 is a beautiful checkmate. If you try here rook to f8, then rook to h6 again is winning the game. So you don't have time even to trade off the bishops here on c3 because you're getting simply destroyed on dark squares. Very, very wild stuff. So that's why after rook to h4 we have queen to g5 by Leela C0, but now Stockfish plays bishop takes g7. We have knight to g7, rook to g1, attacking the queen. The queen has to now stay connected to the knight on g7, and Stockfish simply continues with queen to g3. What should black do again? Let's see options. If you try maybe something like king to g8 to somehow get out of this mess on the h file, basically you're running into the mess on the g file. Nothing changes in your position. Then you see e5 is a beautiful position. You have to step back. Maybe now look at this. This diagonal for the light square bishop is going to be open, so it's not working. If you play, for instance, d takes e5, then look at this. Knight to c5 attacks the rook, attacks also here the knight on h7, so the position is again collapsing, I think, here for black for sure. So here after move queen to g3, that's why bishop to f5 was played by Leela C0. I also analyzed this one. What would have happened if maybe Leela would have blocked out the position with a rook? Then actually nothing dramatically happens. Look at this, knight to e5, d takes e5. We simply continue the pressure. We play rook to h5, then we play even rook to e5. So slowly but surely, although you have two minor pieces for the rook, again, I think this is not a playable position for black, especially when we get maybe this other rook again on h5, and when we manage to push the pawn on e5, there's simply no good way. The knights are paralyzed by the beautiful rook and queen activity, so again, a messed up game for sure. After queen to g3, as we said, bishop to f5. Leela has to now give up back the piece. Stockfish accepts it. E takes f5. But Leela C0 played a beautiful check. We have rook to e2, king to h1. Let's see now what happens if you play rook takes c2. See, beautiful tactical battle it becomes. In the beginning it was really maybe a slightly boring game, but now we have really a tactical collision. After rook to c2, this wasn't again Leela's continuation, but again we are probably curious what happens. Why did Leela C0 pick up now the bishop on c2? Then you get this one. We're simply putting more pressure here on the g file, and even if you try queen to h6, we'll play even f6. We don't have to even pick up now the knight. After knight to f6, rook to h4, you play this one, knight to h5, and now we play rook takes h5. Look how dynamic the position is here on this side of the board. If you play, of course, queen to h5, then queen to g7 is winning the game. If you play knight to h5, then you get queen to g8. Here again a beautiful stunning checkmate. So see, you don't have time here to pick up the piece because you get it simply destroyed on the g file. I think in this moment after queen to h6 you can even pick up the piece immediately, but then the issue is maybe the rook can get back, I don't know, but in my opinion, as I said, rook to c2 is simply not working. So after king to h1 we have rook to e7 by Leela C0, and basically there are now even two cool options that you can do. One cool option is really stunning. Knight to c5 is here even an option. If you play here d takes c5, for instance, then we have this one, rook to h7. Look at this, king to h7. Now we play this one, king to g7, queen to g7. After queen to g7, now we play this one, f6. You step back maybe, and now look at this with f takes g7. This is again a messed up game. Here Stockfish found another plan, played simply knight to f2. Maybe, as I said, knight to c5 more accurate, but knight to f2 keeps everything glued together. Let's see again what happens if you play now rook takes c2. Again, Leela c0 didn't dare to pick up now the piece on c2. Then you get this one, knight to e4. You have to give up now the rook, I think, and now again it's a messed up game. Simply too much pressure here on this side of the board. It's a devastating again position here for black. So after knight to f2, we have rook to e1. We have knight to e4. Rook takes g1, king to g1, queen to d4 check, king to h2, and now knight to f5. You see, Leela is also battling. Leela is struggling here somehow to defend his position. Leela gets also the fork, but now comes another brilliant move. Maybe you can pause the video. Let's practice some tactics here. Maybe you can pause the video and try to see now the best idea here for white. What would you do now in this particular position? Okay, the best idea here is a beautiful rook takes h7. This is the way they go. After king takes h7, now we attack the rook. That's now the issue, and also there are some threats of knight to f6. If you play here rook to e4, then you get simply this one, queen to f5, and we'll simply pick up the rook on e4. So that's why after queen to g5, queen to e5 had to be played by Leela c0. We have now knight to g3, and this was now really beautiful pin by Stockfish, because after knight to g3, if you pick up, of course, here the piece, then queen to g3, you cannot pick it up because of the beautiful bishop's activity. Really crazy position here by Stockfish 60. So after knight to g3, Leela played queen to b2, queen to d2. We have king to h8, knight to f5, and Stockfish grabs now the piece, has now two minor pieces for the rook. But we have to say it, in many positions maybe there is a possibility that you can play with the rook against two minor pieces, but this is not such a position. The king is naked, you have dark square problems here, the queen is coming into the game, so from this point on I think the game is over here for black for sure. It's just a matter of time when black is going to collapse to the end. So after knight to f5, queen to e5, we have here the idea by Leela to include the rook into the game. Stockfish delivers a check, not allowing that, of course, and now bishop to d3, calm move. We have queen to e1, king to g2, queen to c3, another check by Stockfish, and Stockfish is announcing even maybe the possibility of a fully endgame stage, because you can never take out the bishop, you get checkmated. The knight is controlling, of course, the e7 square. So Stockfish is saying, you don't have time to pick up my bishop, you can maybe deliver some checks, but I'll simply go with my king further, because you don't have even good checks with the rook. So the knight and the bishop are controlling these checks in a good way, and also the bishop cannot be taken because of the checkmate threats that we have talked about. So queen to c3, queen to h6, again king gets closer, queen to a1, bishop to c2, queen to c3, queen to f4, rook to e1, queen to g5, and here after king to f8 we have queen to d8. Here Leela c0 covered. Stockfish simply grabs another piece, but again the same position, but with a huge difference now that Stockfish just grabbed the pawn and get again a beautiful piece activity. You cannot again, as I said, take out the bishop because you're getting checkmated. So for queen to f4, again king to h5, interesting move by Stockfish, but as I said, no good checks by black are possible. Queen to f6, and now queen to h6. Interesting also move here by Stockfish, simply trading off more pieces and going into a fully favorable endgame here from white's perspective. Rook to g8, h5, Stockfish plays bishop to e4, rook to g4, and of course d6. If you play, of course, rook takes e4, then we simply push the pawn further. You cannot catch it because the knight is controlling this one, and of course the pawn is controlling the e8 square. We have after d6, rook to g8, Stockfish simply puts more pressure, plays now d7, gets the king closer, and here an interesting choice here by Leela c0. Really tricky idea. Many of us would play here something, I don't know, here the promotion to queen, but this would be actually a beautiful stalemate. So be careful also here after d takes c8, Stockfish promoted to knight, not to queen. Really wild stuff. Tricky Leela here after d takes c8, king to g8, and now after a couple more moves, Stockfish included now all of the pieces into the attack, and after knight to e7 delivered a beautiful and spectacular checkmate with three minor pieces. So this was really an amazing game. In the beginning, really a battle for just a tiny little, I don't know, square on the board. Huge positional battle between the two top engines, but then Stockfish found this plan with f4, let the position explode in the center of the board, activated the rooks on the open file, on the open f file, then eventually managed to somehow pull off some really, really wild tricks, in my opinion. Really instructive, but also beautiful position, but beautiful also tactical game here played by Stockfish against LCZero. So, okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. If you want to see more beautiful chess games like this, check out our commented chess games played by computer series. Here's the link. And if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and what do we say in the end? Chess is the best, of course.